Church services can be pretty strange places for the uninitiated. The pomp, the ceremony, the cryptic passages of scripture. I still remember the moment as a small child realising that thee and thou were legitimate English words and not just the vicar's speech impediment. Cold grey walls and hard pews are hardly conducive to spiritual intercourse, and it's easy to look at other religions, Buddhists with the Dalai Lama or Hare Krishnas with their yogis, and then us with spiritual leaders that seem to hold more in common with Goebbels in a rather dour Star Trek outfit than beacons of spiritual leadership. But every now and again, even amongst all this, you can be struck to the core by a well-placed verse, by a well-made point, or by a hymn that began in Wapping in London's East End. John Newton, as far as I know no relation to Isaac, was born in London's East End in Wapping by the River Thames in 1725. His father was a ship's master, and so, from the age of 11, he would join him on voyages across the seas. At 17, he fell in love with the lovely Mary Catlett, but their blossoming romance was rather rudely interrupted after an altercation with the press gang. Whilst visiting friends, he had a run-in with these rather ruthless naval recruiters, and before he knew it, he was on the HMS 𝐒𝐲𝐬, a man of war. Now, there was something about living in these cramped conditions, getting paid very little and having to put up with the stench of sweaty men that he objected to, and so he decided to escape. But unfortunately, he was recaptured, dragged to the front of the ship in front of 350 crew, stripped to the waist and flogged. It was at this moment that he descended into a deep pit of despair and even contemplated suicide. But his love for Mary Catlett pulled him through. Sometime later, en route to India, John Newton was transferred from the HMS 𝐒𝐲𝐬 to a slave ship called Pegasus, and it was during this time, by his own account, that he became a practitioner of the most licentious and darkest sins. Amongst other indiscretions, he would write rude songs about the captain and mates, much to the amusement of those around him, because he was a very talented songwriter. In keeping with his roller coaster lifestyle thus far, he was then employed by a slave owner whose wife hated him. She brutally abused him and almost ended his days on earth by starving him to death. But he managed to get out of that situation and became a mate on another slave ship. But one day, out on the high seas in 1748 on the 10th of March, a storm hit. The ship was almost wrecked, and in the terror, John Newton got down on his knees and cried out to God. In that moment, he became converted. From that point on, Newton was a new man. He turned from gambling, drinking, profanities, though strangely enough, continued to work in the slave trade for quite a few more years. He returned to England and married his childhood sweetheart Mary. In 1754, though, he suffered a stroke, and it was at that point that he realised the inconsistencies of his faith and his vocation, and so he took up studying theology and became a priest. He developed a friendship with William Wilberforce, the abolitionist, and joined him in seeking the end of the slave trade. In 1807, he witnessed the passing of the Slave Act and died the same year. Today, John Newton is remembered in Sierra Leone, where they have a town named after him, Newton. But he's best remembered elsewhere for putting his songwriting talents to better use and writing the hymn, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Some tell tales, others rhyme, but I sing songs from the howling sea. If you're wondering what on earth you just witnessed, you've been watching a video from the Songs from the Howling Sea podcast. Each week I release a song and a video about a person or a subject from London's East End. 52 songs in 52 weeks. For more, visit www.songsfromthehowlingsea.com.